The year is 1870. America is chaos, no rules, no referees, just blood, and one man is about to change everything. His name is John D. Rockefeller, and he didn't just build an empire, he built the cage you're still living in. See, most people think Rockefeller was just another rich guy, another oil tycoon who made his fortune and faded into history. But that's not the story. The real story is far more terrifying, because Rockefeller didn't just dominate one industry, he invented the blueprint, the system, the machine that every corporation, every government, every power structure still uses today. And you're the fuel. Let me take you back. Back before the Gilded Age had a name. Back when America was just a rough sketch of an idea, bleeding at the edges. It's 1839, Richford, New York. John D. Rockefeller is born into a family that's barely holding it together. His father, William Avery Rockefeller, is a con man. Literally, he sells fake cancer cures to desperate families. He abandons his wife and kids for months at a time. He's a bigamist, a liar, a ghost. But here's the thing about growing up with nothing, with instability. With a father who teaches you that the world is just a game of who can trick who. It shapes you, hardens you, turns you into something cold, something calculating. Young John watches his mother struggle, watches her scrimp, watches her pray, and he makes a decision, a quiet internal decision that will echo through generations. He will never be poor again, he will never be powerless again, and he will never, ever rely on anyone. At 16, Rockefeller gets his first job as an assistant bookkeeper. 50 cents a day. He doesn't complain. He counts. He calculates. He studies every number, every transaction, every pattern. While other kids are dreaming, Rockefeller is learning the language of money, the grammar of control. By 23, he's in the oil business. But here's what nobody tells you about oil in 1863. It's absolute mayhem. Wildcatters are drilling everywhere. Prices swing wildly. Fortunes are made Monday, lost by Friday. It's gambling. It's chaos. It's the opposite of everything Rockefeller believes in, and chaos, that's opportunity. See, Rockefeller doesn't want drill for oil. That's too risky, too dependent on luck. Instead, he goes into refining. He builds a refinery in Cleveland. And while everyone else is focused on finding oil, Rockefeller is focused on something far more important. Control. He starts small. One refinery becomes two. Two becomes five. But Rockefeller isn't just building refineries. He's studying the game. And he sees something nobody else sees. The real money isn't in producing oil. It's in moving it, transporting it, controlling the railroads. So Rockefeller makes a deal. A secret deal. With the railroads. He tells them, give me a discount. A big discount. And in return, I'll give you all my business. Guaranteed volume. Guaranteed profit. The railroads agree. Why wouldn't they? Rockefeller is offering them stability in an unstable world. But here's the twist. The genius move. Rockefeller doesn't just negotiate discounts for himself. He negotiates something called a rebate. And not just a rebate on his own shipments. A rebate on his competitors' shipments too. Read that again. Every time Rockefeller's competitors ship oil on those railroads, they pay full price. And the railroad gives Rockefeller a cut of that payment. He's literally making money off his competition's survival. It's extortion dressed up as a business deal. And it gets worse. With his cost advantage, Rockefeller can now undercut every competitor. He drops his prices below production cost. Bleeds money. Waits, and one by one his competitors collapse. They can't compete. They can't survive, and when they're gasping, desperate, that's when Rockefeller appears, with a briefcase and an offer, sell to me, join Standard Oil, or die. By 1870, Rockefeller incorporates Standard Oil of Ohio, and the machine really starts moving. He doesn't just buy out competitors, he absorbs them. 40 companies in 40 days. Then more. It's not a business strategy, it's a military campaign, and Rockefeller, he's the general who never sleeps. His employees describe him as a ghost. Emotionless, mechanical. He doesn't drink, doesn't smoke, doesn't waste time on pleasure. Every decision is calculated. Every move is 5 steps ahead. He's building something that's never existed before. Not just a company, a system, a monopoly so complete, so total, that escape becomes impossible. But here's what made Rockefeller truly different from every other robber baron of his era. Carnegie, Vanderbilt, Morgan, they were wolves, loud, aggressive, visible. Rockefeller was a spider, silent, patient, invisible. He hid his ownership structures behind layers of shell companies. He used trusts and holding companies before most people even understood what those were. He made sure that when you bought kerosene, you had no idea you were buying from Rockefeller. You just knew there was no other choice. By 1880, Standard Oil controls 90% of American oil refining. 90%. Think about that. One man, one company. Controlling almost an entire industry. But that's not enough. It's never enough. Because Rockefeller understands something that most people don't. Control isn't just about market share. It's about dependency. It's about making sure the system itself can't function without you. So he starts moving downstream. He builds his own pipelines, his own storage tanks, his own distribution networks, his own retail shops, vertical integration before the term existed, and upstream too. He buys oil fields, drilling equipment, everything. From the ground to your lamp, Rockefeller owns every single step, and then he goes international, Europe, Asia. Everywhere humans need light, Rockefeller is there. Standard Oil, the first true global corporation. The first empire built not on land, but on dependency. But to understand how Rockefeller didn't just win the game, but rewrote the rules so no one else could ever play, we need to talk about the machine itself. The architecture of control that Rockefeller built. Because this isn't just about oil, it's about the operating system that runs modern capitalism. Here's what makes Rockefeller's system so insidious, so permanent. He didn't just build a monopoly. He built a monopoly that made monopolies inevitable. Let me explain. Most people think monopolies happen because one company just gets really good at something. Better product, better service, wins the market. End of story. But that's not how Rockefeller did it. Rockefeller understood that true power doesn't come from being the best. It comes from making sure nobody else can even compete. He called it cooperation. Everyone else called it what it was. Economic warfare. Standard Oil would enter a new market quietly. No announcements, no fanfare. Just start selling kerosene at prices nobody could match. 40% below cost, 50% below cost. Whatever it took, local refiners would panic. They'd drop their prices to compete. But they couldn't sustain losses like Rockefeller could. Because Rockefeller wasn't just one refinery. He was 90 refineries. He could lose money in Cleveland while making money in New York. He could bleed one market dry while feeding off another. It's the same strategy Amazon uses today. Sell at a loss, outlast everyone, monopolize, then raise prices, but Rockefeller went further, way further. If a competitor somehow survived the price war, Rockefeller had other tools. He'd go to the railroads and make sure that competitor couldn't ship their product. Or if they could ship it, make sure it cost 3 times as much. He'd go to the suppliers and buy up all the barrels, all the sulfuric acid, all the materials needed for refining, lock up the supply chain, strangle them slowly. He'd even create fake companies, shell corporations that would pretend to be independent, but were secretly owned by Standard Oil. These companies would undercut the real independents, destroy them, then disappear. It's psychological warfare disguised as capitalism. And here's the really twisted part. Once Rockefeller controlled everything, he didn't jack up prices to insane levels. He kept them reasonable, sometimes even lowered them. Why? Because Rockefeller understood something most robber barons didn't. The goal isn't to extract maximum profit today. The goal is to make the system so efficient, so dominant, so essential that extraction becomes permanent. He wanted people dependent, addicted, unable to imagine an alternative. Think about that. The cage doesn't feel like a cage if it's comfortable. By 1882, Rockefeller creates the Standard Oil Trust. And this is where it gets really technical, really important. Because this is the blueprint. The trust structure allowed Rockefeller to control dozens of companies while hiding that control. Each company looked independent on paper. Different names, different boards. But behind the scenes, 9 trustees, all Rockefeller loyalists, all coordinating every decision. It's the world's first true corporate conspiracy. Legal, structured, impossible to break. State regulators would investigate one company and find nothing. Because the power wasn't in any one company. It was in the network, the system. Rockefeller had invented something new. Something that didn't exist in law or language yet. He'd invented the modern corporation as a tool of control. And other industrialists noticed. Morgan studied it. Suddenly everyone wanted a trust. Steel trusts, railroad trusts, sugar trusts. Rockefeller didn't just dominate oil. He taught the entire American economy how to consolidate, how to monopolize, how to win. But let's talk numbers, real numbers. Because the scale is almost incomprehensible. At its peak, Standard Oil had assets worth over $300 million. In 1900s money, adjusted for inflation, that's about $9 billion today. But that massively undersells it. Because Standard Oil didn't just have money. It had control. Control over 91% of oil production. Control over the infrastructure. Control over politicians. Control over the future. Rockefeller personally, he became the world's first billionaire. Not in today's money, in actual dollars. In 1916. When a dollar could buy what $30 buys today. Adjusted for inflation and economic power, Rockefeller's peak wealth was somewhere between $300 and $400 billion. Making him arguably the richest person in human history. Richer than Bezos. Richer than anyone. But here's what's important. That wealth wasn't just money. It was power, political power. Rockefeller owned senators. He owned judges. He owned newspapers. Not through bribes. Through a more elegant system. Donations, investments, relationships. The kind of corruption that's technically legal. When journalists started investigating Standard Oil, Rockefeller would buy the publication. Or buy their advertisers. Or fund a competing publication to drown out the criticism. When states tried to regulate him, Rockefeller would just move the company to another state. Or restructure it to avoid the law. Or fund political campaigns to change the law. He pioneered modern lobbying. modern public relations, modern corporate legal strategy, everything you see today. The revolving door between government and industry, the shell companies and tax havens, the buying of politicians through legal channels. Rockefeller invented it, perfected it, made it normal. But then something interesting happens, something almost poetic. The machine gets too big, too visible, too arrogant. In 1890, Congress passes the Sherman Antitrust Act. It's vague, toothless, but it's a start, a signal that maybe, just maybe, America is waking up to what Rockefeller has built. And then Ida Tarbell enters the story. Ida Tarbell is a journalist, and she's got a personal reason to hate Standard Oil, because years ago Rockefeller crushed her father's oil business, destroyed him, left him broken. So Tarbell spends years investigating, digging, following paper trails that Rockefeller thought he'd hidden. And in 1902, she starts publishing a series in McClure's magazine, The History of the Standard Oil Company. It's brutal, detailed, undeniable. She exposes the secret railroad deals, the fake companies, the predatory pricing, the corruption, everything. And America reads it. Millions of people. And for the first time, they see the machine. They see the cage. The public pressure becomes unbearable. Theodore Roosevelt, the trust-buster president, finally acts. In 1906, the federal government sues Standard Oil under the Sherman Antitrust Act. The case drags on for years. Rockefeller himself testifies. And here's where you see the real man, cold, evasive. He claims he can't remember details, can't recall meetings, gives answers that are technically true but deliberately misleading. He's been doing this his whole life. The performance of ignorance, the weaponization of politeness, but the evidence is overwhelming. And in 1911, the Supreme Court rules, Standard Oil is an illegal monopoly. It must be broken up. 34 separate companies, forced dissolution. The empire shattered. Except, here's the punchline, the irony that makes this whole story so perfectly dark. When Standard Oil is broken up, the stock price doesn't crash. It soars. Because now instead of owning one monopoly, Rockefeller owns pieces of 34 companies. And those companies, they're still dominant in their regions, still powerful, still profitable. ExxonMobil, Chevron, BP, Marathon, these are all children of Standard Oil, all pieces of Rockefeller's empire. Still running, still extracting, still controlling. The breakup didn't destroy Rockefeller. It made him richer. Because you can't kill the system by breaking the company. The system is bigger than any one company. It's in the structure, the laws, the culture, the way we think about business itself. And that brings us to the final darkest truth. Rockefeller won. Completely, permanently. And most people don't even realize it. See, here's what nobody wants to admit. The antitrust laws didn't stop monopolies. They just made them more sophisticated, more hidden, more legal. After Rockefeller, every corporation learned the lesson. Don't be too obvious. Don't control 100%. Control 80% and call it competition. Use different brand names. Create the illusion of choice. Walk into any supermarket today. Dozens of cereal brands, hundreds of products. But almost everything is owned by 10 companies. Unilever, Procter & Gamble, Nestle. The illusion of diversity masking absolute consolidation. That's Rockefeller's legacy. Not the oil, the structure, or look at tech. Google doesn't call itself a monopoly. It calls itself a platform. Amazon doesn't say it's killing competitors. It says it's optimizing the market. Facebook doesn't admit it's buying every rival. It calls it acquisition strategy. Different words, same playbook. Rockefeller's playbook. And the craziest part, Rockefeller saw this coming. He knew the breakup wouldn't matter. Because he understood something that most people still don't understand. The system protects itself. Once you've built the infrastructure, once you've trained an entire economy to function a certain way, you can't just dismantle it. You can break up the company. You can change the laws. But the logic remains. The incentives remain. The game remains. Capitalism doesn't want competition. It wants consolidation. It wants efficiency. It wants monopoly. Because monopoly is the natural end state of any unregulated market. Rockefeller didn't break capitalism. He perfected it. He showed it what it always wanted to become. And here's where it gets personal. Where it touches your life right now. You think you have choices. You think you're free. But look closer. Your internet provider. Probably one of 3 companies. Your phone carrier. One of 3. Your health insurance. Dominated by 5 giants. Your streaming services. Consolidating rapidly. Netflix. Disney. Amazon. The same pattern repeating every industry, every sector. The same slow march toward consolidation. Toward control. And it's not just corporations. It's everything. The universities you can attend. The jobs you can get. The loans you can access. The homes you can afford. All controlled by systems that favor scale. That favor the giants. That punish the small and independent. You're born into debt. Student loans, medical debt. And who owns that debt? Massive financial institutions. The modern equivalent of Standard Oil. Too big to fail. Too powerful to challenge. You work for corporations that have more legal rights than you do. That can relocate to avoid taxes. That can lobby to change laws. That can fire you without cause while you have almost no recourse. The gig economy? That's not freedom. That's the same contractor system Rockefeller used. Maximize flexibility for the company, minimize security for the worker. It's exploitation with an app. And when you try to fight back, when you try to organize, when you try to demand better, the system has evolved tools for that too. Union-busting consultants, mandatory arbitration clauses, non-compete agreements, all legal, all normal, all descended from the corporate playbook Rockefeller pioneered. This is the cage. Not bars, not walls. Just a system so pervasive, so normalized that you can't see it anymore. You think this is just how things are, how they've always been, how they have to be. But it's not. It's designed, engineered, built deliberately by men like Rockefeller who understood that real power isn't forcing people into cages. It's making them build the cages themselves and call it freedom. Now let's talk about Rockefeller's later life. Because there's a final twist. A final lesson in the art of reputation management. By the early 1900s, Rockefeller is the most hated man in America. Cartoons depict him as an octopus strangling the nation. Protesters burn him in effigy. He can't appear in public without security. So what does he do? He hires Ivy Lee, the world's first public relations expert, and together they invent modern PR. Rockefeller starts giving away money. Lots of money. Universities, medical research, Public Health Foundation, Rockefeller University, millions, then hundreds of millions, and slowly, magically, his image transforms. He's no longer the ruthless monopolist. He's a philanthropist, a visionary, a man who built an empire just so he could give it away. The textbooks start changing. The narrative shifts. By the time Rockefeller dies in 1937 at age 97, he's remembered more for his charity than his cruelty, more for what he gave than what he took. It's the ultimate magic trick, the final play in the ultimate game. You don't just control the economy, you control the story, the history, the memory, and that's what the ultra-wealthy learned from Rockefeller. Gates, Bezos, Buffett, they all have foundations now. They all give away billions. And the media calls them heroes while they accumulate trillions. It's wealth, laundering for reputation. And it works. Because most people can't hold two ideas in their head at once. They can't see that you can fund hospitals and destroy competition. That you can cure diseases and exploit workers. That you can be generous and ruthless simultaneously. Rockefeller proved you can do both. And if you do it right, history will forgive everything. So where does that leave us right now? Today, we're living in Rockefeller's world. Every structure, every system, every rule of the game was either invented by him or perfected by those who studied him. The consolidation continues. Bigger mergers, larger monopolies, more control concentrated in fewer hands. And every time someone tries to break it up, the pieces just recombine in new configurations. Because you can't regulate away the incentive. You can't law away the logic. Capitalism wants this. Markets want this. Efficiency demands this. Unless we change the game entirely. Unless we question the fundamental assumptions. Unless we ask why we've accepted that the purpose of an economy is to maximize shareholder value instead of human well-being. But that's a different conversation. A harder conversation. The kind of conversation that powerful people spend billions making sure we never have. Here's the thing about Rockefeller that makes him so important, so worth studying, so terrifying. He wasn't evil. Not in the cartoon villain sense. He didn't wake up wanting to hurt people. He woke up wanting to win, to build, to create order out of chaos. He genuinely believed he was helping. That consolidation was progress. That efficiency was virtue. That his monopoly made oil cheaper and more accessible than it had ever been. And he was right. Sort of. Standard Oil did lower prices, did improve distribution, did make kerosene available to millions. But at what cost? At the cost of freedom, of choice, of the possibility that maybe, just maybe, there could have been a different way. A better way. A way that didn't require one man to have that much power. Rockefeller didn't just build an empire. He built a philosophy, a worldview, an entire framework for understanding what business is supposed to be. And we're still living in that framework. Still thinking in those terms. Still accepting that this is normal. Inevitable. Natural. But it's not natural. It's constructed. And what's constructed can be deconstructed. The question is whether we'll do it before the cage becomes so complete, so total, that we forget what freedom even looked like. John D. Rockefeller died 8 years ago. But walk outside. Look around. Check your bank account. Read your employment contract. Calculate how many corporations touched your life today. He's still here. In every structure. Every system. Every transaction. You can't escape what you don't even know you're in. And that's the real genius. The real horror. The real legacy. Rockefeller didn't just win the game. He became the game. And now we're all just playing it. Whether we want to or not, the cage was never locked. Because it never needed to be. We were born inside it. And we've been calling it home ever since.